Hi, today I'm going to show you how to configure ADFS2 in SharePoint Server 2010. We start on the ADFS server. The first thing we're going to need to do is configure a relying party trust. We'll do this in the ADFS2 Management Console. Start the Relying Party Trust wizard. The first step in this wizard is to select a data source. For this step, choose Enter Data about the relying party manually, then click Next. In the next step of the wizard, we need to type a display name for the relying party. Because this is a demo, I'll just use SharePoint. Also enter a description. For instance, what web application uses this RPSTS? Then click Next in the wizard. Next, we need to select what ADFS profile we want to use. We're using ADFS2, so we'll select the ADFS2 profile. Click Next. The Configure Certificate step will let you select a certificate and encrypt the SAML token. However, ADFS requires our connection to use SSL. Therefore, the channel the token is sent over is already encrypted. So take no action on the screen and just click Next. In the Configure URL step, you specify a protocol for your relying party. Here we use a WS Federation passive protocol. Take note that the path to the URL should be the URL of the SharePoint Web Application's root site, but including the _trust subdirectory. Enter the URL and click Next. Now provide a unique identifier for the relying party. The realm we enter identifies your web application. The web application passes this realm information to ADFS when users log into the site. ADFS can map incoming login requests to one of the relying party trusts it has using this realm information. Now we choose the issuance authorization rules. In this case, we'll assume that the relying party will be used by everyone, except the default selection permit all users to access this relying party, and click Next. Before you complete the Relying Party Trust wizard, check your configuration so you'll notice any typos or errors. You can click the previous button to correct them. Click Next. Now you've configured your Relying Party Trust. However, it still needs a claim rule to tell ADFS what claims to send to SharePoint Server 2010. Make sure the Open the Edit Claim Rules dialog checkbox is selected and click Close. The Edit Claim Rules dialog will open. Click the Add Rule button to add a new rule to ADFS. This starts the Add Transform Claim Rule wizard. We'll now choose which claim rule template to use. For this demo, we use Send LDAP attributes as claims. This is because in our case, ADFS is authenticating information from Active Directory. Click the Next button. Next, we configure our actual claim rules. First, type the name for the claim rule. Next, select the attribute store. For this demo, it's Active Directory. Once this is done, we'll map LDAP attributes to outgoing claim types. We'll send both the email address and the groups that the user belongs to back to SharePoint. Select the attributes you want from the drop-down on the left. Select the claim it will be sent out as on the right. In this demo, we use the email address attribute in Active Directory and map it as an email address claim. We also use the token groups unqualified names Active Directory attribute and map it as a role claim. At this point, the claim rule has been completed. Click OK. Now we need to export and move the token signing certificate from ADFS to your SharePoint 2010 environment. ADFS uses this certificate to sign the tokens that it sends out. This signing ensures the consumer of the token that it hasn't been tampered with since its creation. We'll be needing the certificate to be on the SharePoint farm as we configure SharePoint to use ADFS. You'll see it again in later steps. To get the token signing certificate, use the ADFS2 Management Console. The certificate you need to get is the Token Signing Certificate. Be sure that you select the primary certificate. Select the certificate and click View Certificate in the Actions menu. The Details tab has a helpful Copy to File button, so click Copy to File. The Certificate Export wizard will start. Click Next. Don't export the private key. It's not needed. Use the default file format of dir encoded binary X509 and click Next. Export to a location where the file will be easy to find, like the root of C. Call the exported token signing certificate something like adfsts.cer. Click Finish to complete the wizard. You'll need to copy this certificate to the SharePoint server. Keep in mind that if your certificate has a parent certificate, you'll need to export the parent and install it on the SharePoint Server 2010 environment as well. Every certificate in the chain to that token signing certificate will need to be exported and copied to the SharePoint 2010 server. To check if the token signing certificate has a parent, select the primary token signing certificate, view the certificate, and click the Certification Path tab. Once you've copied your token signing certificate and any parent certificates to the SharePoint 2010 farm, you're ready to configure SharePoint. You can close the ADFS2 management console if you want. The next actions will be taken on the SharePoint server that runs SharePoint Central Administration. Trusted Claims configuration on the SharePoint server is done through three methods: SharePoint Central Administration, SharePoint 2010 Management Console, and the SharePoint site which will use the Trusted Claims. We'll start by opening the SharePoint 2010 Management Console. We configure SharePoint to use a trusted identity provider through Windows PowerShell. Because the commandlet to configure this form of claims authentication is complex, we're going to make use of PowerShell variables to simplify it. Variables have a syntax beginning in a $sign. These variables will be used in a larger command which will configure a trusted identity provider for SP 2010. We'll start by importing the token signing certificate and its parent certificate. This demo uses adfsts.sir and adfsparent.sir. For the parent certificate, I use a variable called $root. Run the following commandlets. For the token signing certificate, I use a variable $cert. Run the following commandlets. The variables allow us to import and leverage the certificates for SharePoint's use. Next, we'll use PowerShell to define our claims mappings to match the email address and role we set back in ADFS. In the SharePoint 2010 Management Console, we'll create two variables for this, $map and $map2. Run the following commandlets. These two variables now contain your mapped claims. Now we'll need to create the realm. The realm we type here must match the realm we entered in ADFS. Now we've reached the commandlet that ties all of our variables together. This commandlet will allow us to create a new authentication provider, a trusted identity provider for SharePoint. The variables created for $root, $cert, $map, $map2, and $realm will all be used in the final commandlet. Run the following command, and note that the sign-in URL parameter points to the ADFS server in the /adfs/ls subdirectory, and the identifier claim is your email address mapping. The identifier claim will be important to remember when you go to the site to add users. You can minimize the SharePoint 2010 Management Console now. Browse to Central Administration in your browser window. Now that you've created a trusted identity provider, you must associate your web application with it. This is done through Manage Web Applications and Authentication Providers. Click your default zone. You will be able to select your trusted identity provider and deselect other methods of authentication as needed. The final step is to add users to the SharePoint site for which you created the provider. This demo assumes you've already configured a web application to use Secure Sockets Layer or SSL. When you do this, keep in mind that you selected the email address as your identifier claim. Add your users in the form of an email address, such as karenb@fabricam.com. I'll add Karen with full read permissions to the site. Notice that her account is prefixed with claims encoding, and that the name I provided for the trusted identity provider also appears. Now we'll leave the SharePoint server and go to Karen's client computer where the browser defaults point at the SB Contoso site. I note that her email address appears on the Welcome Web part. Let's check our My settings. Her account is displaying as expected. If dual authentication is configured, for instance NTLM and Trusted Claims, Karen may also see this screen presenting the available login methods. Thanks for watching.